New York Jets, New England Patriots, Thursday Night Football, everything you need to know in 15 minutes. If you've never been here before, welcome. My name is Max. I make these for every primetime game as well as every game on Sunday to give you a unique edge, looking at run scheme metrics, coverage data, and overall trends nobody really talks about because it relates to the scheme behind the game instead of just the numbers you see on the screen. Without further ado, let's get into this breakdown transparently. This is my most in-depth breakdown I've had all season long, guys. There's some great information here. And as always, in the description are links to my socials, Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, where there will be other shorter form breakdowns, player-specific stuff, going even more in-depth than what we're going to talk about here. The bottom line with this Jets defense, and this Jets team is currently double-digit underdogs against this New England Patriots team, is that their identity didn't really change last week without Sauce Gardner. I thought it would. I thought they'd play a little less man. We'll talk about the splits here in a second, but it didn't really change. The defensive identity, how they went about their coverages and splits, didn't. But the explosive potential should be there for the Patriots offense. And I want to emphasize explosive because you look at the data outliers, the Jets are giving up the sixth fewest pass yards per game to opposing quarterbacks. And you go look at some of these quarterbacks against the Jets, the season high for yardage against these guys was week 1. 244 yards, and it was Aaron Rodgers. And there have been some pretty good quarterbacks that have played against them. Baker Mayfield, you have Dak Prescott, you have Joe Flacco with that Cincinnati Bengals offense. Part of the reason the ceilings are capped, I think, for quarterbacks against the New York Jets is because they're not great on the ground. They're giving up 138.2 rush yards per game. That's the 8th most in the league, as well as 17 pass touchdowns, 10th most in the league. And the most interesting stat I found is the highest percentage of yards after the catch in the NFL. So compared to their overall pass yards per game allowed, they're allowing the highest percentage of those yards to be after the catch. They play a bunch of man, the explosives will be there. That's kind of what happens. In terms of the coverage data and trends, the bottom line, like I just talked about, did it change with Sauce Gardner? No. Last week, they still played a ton of man-to-man. Granted, they played the Cleveland Browns. They probably felt like they liked their matchups one-on-one against the Browns, but it's worth noting they actually played more man last week than their season average prior to that game against Cleveland. They also run a ton of middle field open, which is a little bit interesting. It's a really unique combo. Like I said, overall, they're top 10 in man-to-man and in middle field open. It's a really odd combination because when they're not playing man, they're playing middle field open, almost not exclusively, but very, very highly cover 2. They play a bunch of cover 2. In those coverage downs, they're not afraid to sit back, keep everything in front of them, and for lack of a better phrase, cloud wide receivers on the outside. When you look at Drake May against these coverages, the man-to-man coverage is a Stephon Diggs show. He's targeted most frequently. He is dominating everybody he plays across. But Pop Douglas is more explosive against man coverage. You look at the yards per reception numbers against man specifically. Pop Douglas is the guy that they get for big explosive plays. And now you look at last week without Kayshon Boutte, who doesn't seem like is going to play. As always, injury updates will be pinned in the comments because these come out before the games and before the final injury reports. Everything will be updated, pinned in the comments here. Kyle Williams had 3+ yards per out run versus man-to-man across the entire year this year. Would you believe me, though, if the wide receiver I'm going to talk about in a couple minutes is not any of these 3 guys? Because there's a very interesting trend with this guy right here, Matt Collins. Now, middle field open still, Stephon Diggs, most frequently targeted. He runs a good amount of routes from the slot, so he keeps it between the hashes, but Matt Collins sees a bigger increase. He's second most frequent targeted receiver against these coverages. And he's more explosive than Stephon Diggs, which is really interesting to note because you don't think of Matt Collins, this big-bodied wide receiver, as an explosive guy or even a guy who would benefit from a defense like the New York Jets play. We're wrong. In terms of the quarterback target rates, it's really weird because every time we make these breakdowns, and if you guys have been subscribed for a minute, which if you're not, make sure you do right now, we always see like this guy's top 10 in out wide target rate or this guy's top 5 in running back target rate. Drake May is not top 10 in any target rate. There's above average, like highest comparatively. He's thrown in the running back position comparatively more than out wide, slot, inline tight end. But he's average in terms of his out wide and inline tight end target rate. He's slightly below average in slot target rate. The only big data outlier here for Drake May is that he's top 5 in first read target rate, which is huge. And the Jets, which we'll talk about here in a second, give up a bunch of first read targets. Diggs, again, this is the guy we're going to talk about a bunch, is the main first read guy. That's where he goes number 1. Oddly enough, Hunter Henry is the second highest frequented target main read guy. And then Matt Collins is number 3 behind those two guys. He likes throwing to Matt Collins, and with Kayshon Boutte banged up, potentially out, Hollins is probably going to see the same increase he saw against Tampa Bay. In terms of the defensive target rate, you got to take this with a grain of salt, but the Jets are targeted in the slot at a top 10 rate. I think part of that is getting away from throwing at Sauce Gardner. It changed a little bit last week. They were targeted out wide a little bit more last week. But when you look at the Patriots slot production, the highest percentage of team routes from the slot is Pop Douglas. The highest yards per route run from the slot, again, we talked about it a couple minutes ago, the explosive portion here is Pop Douglas. But the most frequently targeted in the slot is still Stefon Diggs. The bottom line here with the receivers, Diggs versus Douglas, if you're looking for volume, Stefon Diggs probably going to get more targets, right? If you're looking for explosives, chunk plays, Pop Douglas, a longest reception or a big explosive touchdown, that is the guy I think I would look at. And again, below average out wide running back target rate, average inline target rate. The Jets are getting targeted in the slot. That's the bottom line, as well as this. Top 3 first read percentage in the NFL, and Drake May is throwing the first read at a top 5 rate, excuse me. You look at all of that information, you think Stefon Diggs, which we will break down here in a second. Yes, Stefon Diggs should be in for a good one. But we can't talk about the Patriots without talking about the run game because they're running the ball moderately effectively, but TreVeyon Henderson looked great last week against Tampa. Obviously, Ramondre Stevenson is banged up. Another thing where we will keep you updated, pinned in the comments here on injury status. I'd be shocked if he returned to his normal workload on Thursday night, though. You look at TreVeyon Henderson these last couple games, 14 carries in back-to-back games, and most importantly, he's starting to see a split with Terrell Jennings here, right? Terrell Jennings, it was 14-11 2 weeks ago. Last week, it was 14-4. The high percentage of carries that TreVeyon Henderson got benefited the Patriots too. You look at the snap counts for these guys. Terrell Jennings, 8% of snaps last week compared to 25% of snaps in week 9. TreVeyon Henderson, with Ramondre Stevenson out, is taking over the backfield right now. The bottom line, though, they're not wildly efficient in terms of their man gap scheme runs compared to zone. TreVeyon Henderson's also better in the zone scheme runs. The Jets are worse against zone. So again, if TreVeyon Henderson's better in this thing the Jets are worse at, he should have a little bit more success. But they were also extremely stout against the Browns' run offense last week, but just in general, the man gap scheme run. So the departure of Quinnen Williams, it's been a week. I don't think it's as noticeable as we expected it to be, but it still will be a story to watch. So players to watch, obviously Stefon Diggs, and TreVeyon Henderson, but we have to talk about Matt Collins because the Patriots have played 2 games against other top 10 man-to-man teams. You go look at these game logs. You can see 7 for 27 or 4 for 27 and 7 for 89. Matt Collins against these man-heavy teams is producing. That's the reality of it, right? So you get this game against the Cleveland Browns where, Kayshon Boutte obviously played more snaps. It was a blowout, all this stuff, but he led all wide receivers in receptions and yards. You go to the other top 10 man game. This pass offense really struggles. Who catches the most balls? Matt Collins. Matt Collins is producing against man. He's a bigger body guy and should have opportunities down the field, especially on the outside without Sauce Gardner, to make plays. So those are 3 guys I'm looking at, especially as it relates to, for TreVeyon Henderson, a rushing yards, a Stefon Diggs, or a Matt Collins receptions, not necessarily yards, receptions. I like those guys. And then you look at the Patriots defense. I'm going to take a sip of my coffee here. The bottom line, though, is they are excellent against the run, like best in the NFL against the run, in my opinion, right now. Minimal tips in the pass game, but the running backs will produce through the air. When you look at the Jets, where Justin Fields likes to throw the ball, assuming Justin Fields is the starter here again, data will change a little bit with Tyrod Taylor. Breece Hall should have a big one here, but through the air, not necessarily on the ground. They're giving up the 12th most pass yards per game, the 5th highest completion percentage allowed, 18 pass touchdowns. Then these are the 2 big notes. Most running back receptions allowed, 6.1 per game. They're also allowing 38.1 running back receiving yards per game, as well as the 5th most tight end receptions allowed, 6.1 per game. Oddly enough, it's the same number, but 65.4 receiving yards per game. In terms of what the Patriots are good at, what's bad for the Jets, fewest rush yards per game allowed, 79.2. The next closest, guys, is allowing more than 90 yards per game. Nobody's even coming close to this Patriots defense in terms of what they're doing on the ground, the 4th fewest yards per carry as well. And the Jets love to run the ball, right? They're averaging 28.2, I believe, rush attempts per game. That's holistically with Fields, with Tyrod Taylor, whoever. And the Patriots are really good at it. And I think they're going to be able to shut them down. The Patriots, there's really no tip here in coverage either, which is difficult. They're extremely balanced in coverage. They're playing man at an above average rate. Like they'll play man more often than more than half the teams in the NFL, but they're top 10 in cover 2 and cover 4. When they're not playing man, it's a lot of those coverages. Fields versus man-to-man, middle field open, zone. If I'm out there, if you're out there, it's Breece Hall. It's all Breece Hall. That's where Justin Fields likes to throw the football. And again, if Tyrod Taylor starts, doesn't sound like he will, obviously I'll keep you posted in the comments here, the data does not dramatically change from the overall production that the Jets have offensively. So it is important to note, we'll talk target rates here in a second, but man-to-man, Breece Hall is the number one most frequently targeted player. It's designed targets, but it's also one-on-one against backers. You have to feel like Breece Hall has the advantage there. Next, though, is Garrett Wilson, and he's hurt. He's not playing. So now who? A.D. Mitchell? He didn't know the playbook last week. He couldn't play. It's a short week now. Isaiah Williams, oddly enough, is the next guy up in targets per route run. Then John Mechie, then Mason Taylor, which is really interesting. Mason Taylor, again, being the 5th most frequent in player against man is not a ton of data, but Patriots are giving up the 5th most tight end receptions allowed and allowing 65.4 yards per game. In terms of explosives, who wants the bigger plays, the chunk plays? Breece Hall, number 1 still. In terms of yards per out run. Then, oddly enough, it's Isaiah Williams again after Garrett Wilson. This Jets pass offense is ridiculously difficult to predict, but it's worth noting that Isaiah Williams keeps popping up, especially against man-to-man coverage. In terms of middle field open, targets per out run, it's John Mechie, oddly enough. He's running less routes. Then it's Breece Hall. Then it's Isaiah Williams. And then it's Mason Taylor. Middle field open generally to me means more running back and tight end production through the air. Explosives, though. Number 1 most explosive against middle field open. Breece Hall. Then it's Tyler Johnson. Then it's Mechie. The bottom line with all of this, guys, if the Patriots are balanced, okay, let's look at most of the coverages that they play. Who's the number 1 pass catcher against most of those coverages? It's Breece Hall. It's Breece Hall. Breece Hall has to be the mainstay in the pass game. And I actually think the Patriots will try to hone in on that, to be honest with you. In terms of target rates, Fields is top 5 inline target rate, top 5 in running back target rate, but a very low first read percentage. And that makes sense because a lot of times you're checking the ball down to your running back. If Breece Hall is producing like this, you're not going to have a super high first read percentage. But in terms of defensive target rates, the Patriots, again, are top 10 in running back target percentage allowed. They're average in terms of the out wide and inline target rate, but not allowing a ton in the slot. So it's important to note. In terms of the run scheme metrics, the New York Jets, again, they're running about 28 attempts per game, extremely high zone run percentage. And they're actually top 10 in zone yards per carry. They run the ball pretty well. Justin Fields, Breece Hall, the numbers get bumped up a little bit when you have a quarterback rush game, but the fact that they're top 10 is pretty important. Says a lot about a team that's averaging, again, 28 rush attempts per game while still being bad, like still getting blown out a lot of the time, not being in a lot of these games. The fact that they can maintain that yards per carry as well as 28 plus rush attempts a game is pretty impressive. Now, the issue here is the Patriots are the best zone team in the NFL defensively. So I don't think Breece Hall is going to have a ton of success. The other interesting note here is Breece Hall against good run defenses. He needs the carries, but guys, he's produced against them. He's produced against them. You go look at the 3 big run defenses that they played. Last week, Breece Hall, 21 carries, but he's still at 80 plus against the Cleveland Browns. He broke off a couple. That's how it goes. You go look at the performance against I believe it was Pittsburgh Steelers week 1. 19 carries against, a lot of carries, but the Jets are going to run the ball a bunch for 107 yards. You look at Denver, the 22 for 59 is a little bit concerning, right? But against these good run defenses, he's been able to produce. I don't think he has some crazy game against New England. I think that's unrealistic to expect against this defense, but he's produced in the past. If you think the Jets can keep this close, I don't. But if you do, I think Breece Hall could have a pretty nice game. Players to watch, obviously Breece Hall. I love him through the air. That's the main thing for me. Breece Hall through the air is beautiful. Tyler Johnson, Isaiah Williams, those are their targets without Garrett Wilson 2 weeks ago against Cincy. Obviously, Justin Fields threw the ball like 11 times or whatever it was against the Browns, so not leaning too heavily into that. But Mason Taylor, 8 targets without Garrett Wilson. And again, Patriots, 5th most tight end receptions allowed, 65 tight end yards per game, as well as the fact that they are targeted at a top 5 rate at the inline spot. I like Mason Taylor a lot. In terms of the red zone edge, believe it or not, I think the Jets have it, right? They're both below average offensively. Like you look at the percentages of trips into the red zone that wind up in a touchdown for both of these teams, you could see New York Jets, 52.38%. New England Patriots, 57.14%. Not very good. But defensively, the Patriots are the worst red zone defense in the NFL statistically. 74% of trips that get into the red zone are touchdowns against the Patriots. I don't think the Jets are going to have a ton of red zone trips. I hope you don't either. But they're not great when teams get down there. And when you look at the Jets, again, they're not, this wildly great team, but they're top 15, right? It's just over half the trips that get in there are touchdowns. It's a pretty decent number for a defense that hasn't been great this year. And then you go look at the line of scrimmage stats. Obviously, the Patriots have it in the run game, but it gets a little closer when you look at what the Jets do on the defensive side of the ball. Patriots, again, are getting after the quarterback more statistically. Like you look at team sacks per game, New England here 2.2 and the New York Jets at 1.9. But the last three games, again, you're getting healthier as the New York Jets with Will McDonald, Tremaine Johnson. These guys are playing more, getting healthier. They're getting better. 3.0 sacks per game. And you look at the last three, that number would put the Jets above average, nearly in the top 15 with all this stuff. So again, better than I think people give them credit for. But on the other side of the ball, team sacked per game, the Jets are getting sacked the second most in the NFL. Justin Fields / Tyrod Taylor getting sacked 3.8 times per game. Whereas New England, again, it's not great, but it's better at 3.5 times per game. So I think New England has the line of scrimmage edge there. I think New England wins this game pretty handily. Again, they're double-digit favorites. I like them to win this game. I like it to be a blowout. If you guys did enjoy this video, make sure to leave a like and subscribe if you are new. God bless you guys. We'll see you next time.